everyone, and welcome back to Bitcoin and Beyond, where we explore the people, the ideas, and the projects that are shaping the future of Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, and art. I'm your host, I'm Melanie Carstens, and today we are joined by Zoe Louise, otherwise known as Melzy, a multidisciplinary artist from New Zealand whose work moves between the physical canvas and on-chain permanence. Zoe began her journey as an in-real-life artist, moving into digital work on Ethereum in 2021 and then in 2024 onto Bitcoin. Her process combines acrylic paint, flowers, mirrors, I think photography as well. We're going to get into that. And we are going to explore decay and permanence, the idea of that and how it inspires her work. So Zoe, thank you so much for joining me here today. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. I'm here. I've been looking forward to this chat since you reached out. So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Zoe and I live on opposite sides of the time zones. So for me, it's early morning and it's nighttime there. That's why we are not doing it at our normal 11 a.m. slot, just so that I could chat to Zoe because I've wanted to talk to her for a long time. I'm a fan of her work. So yeah. Okay, so let's dive right in. Your work, like I said, has spanned from physical through to Ethereum and then Bitcoin. So let's talk about your work before that, before Ethereum, how you kind of got into art and who you were, who you became as an artist during that time. So kind of like even from your young days, we can go right as far back as you want to go, just so that we can get a sense of who you are before we sort of move forward.
For sure. Yeah, art has always been, I guess, something that I've enjoyed. Like at school, it was the thing that I did, or I don't know if I was ever really good at it, but it was something that I enjoyed or looked forward to. Academic, but art was my place where I could go and just do the things that I enjoyed. So I did it at school. I did it at home. Nothing specific. Paint, canvas, paper. No kind of, I guess, obvious direction when you're a teenager trying to, muddle your way through the world. And I looked at going into studying art, and I couldn't foresee the bigger picture of what art was, society and where I was in that. And the thought of studying something for 4 years and taking on the burden of the degree and not knowing where it would send you was a lot for me at 17. So instead of doing that, I bought a one-way ticket and went over to Australia and just worked. I just worked in hospitality. And I always did art throughout that, but I guess it was a time of finding yourself or wondering what the world is outside of, home and high school. So I lived over there by myself and I had some connections, but I grew a lot kind of from 17 till 20. They were quite big years of detachment from everything that I knew, finding your way through the world, workforce, responsibility. So that was like a pivotal decision because I didn't stay in everything that I knew. Now I look back, I hope my daughter doesn't do that to me. Leave so far, so soon. And throughout my time in Australia, I was there for about 8 years and I moved years, and I always somehow found space in my suitcase for art supplies, for paints or for paper or something like that. And in various places I got to know homeware stores and galleries, and I would sell my work through them. It was not like it is to me now, but it was something that was more maybe like a hobby that I thought that I would have to do this outside of work, for the duration of my life until I could retire and do art. So kind of lost in a way now looking back. anyway, moving forward, I sold in galleries and in shops, and that was cool at various places in Australia. We then moved home, and I, family, and that is obviously a very pronounced point in your life, becoming a mum. And I set up our garage into a studio, and I started putting more time and effort into what art was. And I started going to see a really cool lady who did abstract art, and she saw art how I see it now, but at the time I didn't see it how she saw it. So I was there, and I was, mum, little kid, art. And then we had a pivotal point in our life where we lost our second child at childbirth when he was full term. So I had this, I don't think I'll ever have a time in my life that will be like that, this change in direction wholeheartedly. And art, that's when what art can be, fell into place for me, I guess. Like it was my everything. I would paint every night about this experience because I didn't know what else to do with it. That kind of connection, and that's when I decided, or I don't even know if it was a decision, it just came upon me that this is what you'll do, and that art is so much more than maybe what I thought it was, and that I can do it now, and it doesn't have to make a lot of sense in the world, but it's hugely important to me and to who I am as a person. So that was in 2021, where I guess you're kind of lost in your early 20s, and then something pivotal happened, and then art, I have a better grasp on the true beauty of it and the power of it, and I believe in its form wholeheartedly for humans. So that took me to early days of art, and then that took me to the blockchain in late 2021. So that's kind of when I started on the blockchain. I put my first series about that episode in my life. So it started there, because it starts kind of at that point. You don't see anything before then. But yeah, so growing from 5 years from then.
Yeah. I want to touch on a couple of things that you said there that I think are important. I watched, remember when you were doing the interviews, or when Gamma were doing those interviews with the artists, and I remember seeing an interview that you did, and it really stayed with me when I felt very emotional about it actually, and now as you're telling me this story, it's going back to what you said there, and where you held those flowers up. And you said you just watched them kind of move from this beautiful, all that color and life. I mean, you didn't use these quite words, but that's how it kind of stuck with me. And you watch them decay and return to the earth. And now that you're speaking of your child, I can really, I think, understand, because it was going to be one of my questions. When did that happen? That you kind of started fascination, or now I understand it's a healing in a way. It's an ongoing experience of healing. And I think people who've been through what you've been through, that is such a beautiful way to kind of to, I think, express or come, just to release it from yourself in a way.
Yeah, not thought out at all. Very, very as it happened. One of the big things was during that time, a lot, everyone sends flowers when those things happen, and of course I've sent flowers to other people as well. But these flowers, they became kind of tormenting, because you just receive something that was just cut of life, and it wilts, just as I saw something dear to me wilt. So I would like throw these flowers out before they wilted, could see that again. Some of the foliage of that ended up being a paintbrush of the paintings that I was working on. I was a lot more emotional than I am now about it, but like literally throwing paint and flowers at the canvas because just anything. So that's where it started. Well, that is the everything of that I do. But it took me a while I kind of moved away from flowers as you kind of distance yourself from something that's so heavy through my work. And I've kind of full circled back to using them again in a different headspace or a different light to do that. So that's why I think that I often share earlier work of mine or like people to see the whole arc, because I think that's the interesting thing. I've put out work as it's happened. I haven't always understood it, but I've wanted to put it out on the blockchain as it's happened, so we get to see, an arc of someone's journey, which I think is interesting because everyone has an arc on their journey or the decisions and how they get there. But through art and through the blockchain, we get, like snippets of truth each time something's been put out. So look interesting, like retrospect. But the flowers, the paint, that all comes from that time. Absolutely. I can't not work with them now. Like, fascinating.